what's the system for turning episodes into something that consistently build the business, either bringing in leads, building authority? Like, how do we really get it add to the business?
Yeah, so a lot of that comes into the pre-planning that you're going to do. And I'm sorry, that is absolutely the least fun answer of all of the possible answers. But it really is. So for building thought leadership, first thing is understanding, what do you really need and want to be known for? What is that area of expertise? What is that topic? What are the conversations happening out there in the world that you want to be contributing to? And so that means some research, either done by yourself or done by your fabulous executive virtual assistant, who I'm sure would be excellent at doing that kind of work. But getting a sense of the lay of the land, what are people saying? What's the type of conversation they're having? And what are you adding to the conversation that is new? And then designing your podcast episodes around that. A thought leadership podcast should usually include some solo content. You may have conversations with other experts, but those are conversations with an expert about an area of mutual expertise rather than an interview extracting knowledge. And you should also be getting your solo content in there so you have time and airspace to really put your ideas out there. You might comment on the news, you might review topics, you might teach, you might explain, you might do Q&A. Those are really, really fun Q&A episodes. But these are all chances for you to get your own knowledge and IP out there, with the idea that other people are going to turn to you as a source of information. And that's going to go into your promotion as well. So your episodes, they should be searchable on your website really easily, and they should be well optimized to be found when people are, typing into LLMs or when they're looking into search. That's a big part of Thought Leadership Podcast, is making your content findable. Again, not fun work, not the fun part of podcasting, but long term, that's going to be really, really valuable for you. So it really comes down to figuring out, what are the things that create thought leadership for anything? And then how is your podcast going to do those things, and kind of building the systems and the structure around, for every episode, doing all of those steps that make it findable, that make it referable, and as much as possible, engaging with other people who are having the same kind of conversations, so that when somebody looks at podcast B, they're like, okay, that's really interesting. Oh, good. Podcaster C, that's you, is also talking about this. I need to listen to them too to continue. So I have all of the information.
Right. Okay. I feel like there's like 5 million things I could go into just to this idea of thought leadership podcasting. But some of the things that it's bringing up for me is, I know, like, we've put our podcast episodes on our website. The thing is, it hasn't been great for SEO because we don't do thought leadership style podcasts. I'm always interviewing a different guest. So like, we're kind of talking about their business, and there's nuances which are tangential to mine, but not necessarily directly related. So a thought leadership style podcast would be better if I wanted it for like SEO on my website.
Exactly.
The other thing I'm thinking about with thought leadership, some of the podcasts I'm thinking of that do it well are where there are 2 co-hosts. So they can have discussion and they can stay on their specific topic, because they don't have someone else that they have to engage who has a different topic and a different expertise that they're bringing in.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent point. And co-hosted podcasts are really popular for that type of thing. It's great if you have a co-founder, if you've got like a firm that has different partners in it. Those are really great opportunities to have that co-hosted show. And it's solos typically outperform almost anything else, because people love the host that they listen to. But co-hosts come in just about second, because people get to know both of you, and the listeners, they like you, and you build these relationships with the host that you listen to. And I think co-host is a great way to do it, because all of the airtime is shared, but it's still all focused on what you want to be building thought leadership for.
Well, and it's so funny how and I'd love to dive into like what type of podcasting to do the best. And I remember once having a conversation with people. It was about a very popular podcast that we listened to that had 2 co-hosts, and people were having a very heated discussion about which of the co-hosts they preferred. It's like,
that is a risk you take.
It was really funny. I mean, it was like back when you were kids and you're arguing over like, who's your favorite Backstreet Boy or whatever the case may have been, Like, people were like,
Brian
I
forever.
really like him. Yes, I really like him. Like, I think that guy's too pompous. It was intense. It was intense. So, okay. Now that we've had that little tangent, I'm curious. I'm really intrigued. You said like solos tend to perform the best. Can we kind of dive into your wisdom with that?
Yeah. So that one that solos perform best, that is more anecdotal than anything else. I'll be transparent about that, because I produce a lot of podcasts. What we tend to find is that when someone typically has an interview show, but maybe every once in a while, maybe a guest canceled, they're going to do a solo. That solo episode is going to outperform most of the interviews that they've ever done. I think for the most part, most people do interviews because, one, it's amazing networking. And if that's your goal, you got to have guests. And it's easier to have a conversation with someone than it is to sit and talk for 20 minutes. That's hard. I mean, okay, it's easy for some people. You're allowed to hate those people. But I find it challenging myself. But the people who are listening, they're listening for the host more than they are for the guest. They may like the way the host asks questions. They may learn something from the guest. But really, the reason somebody tunes in to multiple episodes week over week, because they like the host. Forgive me. And that's the real relationship that's built on the host to audience level. So I think it is fascinating that the solo episodes, they also tend to do really well just downloads wise, because that personality marketing. It's the personal branding, and it's usually more focused for learning. So one person just talking when they've planned a little what the content is going to be, that can be a really good way to teach something. And those tend to be episodes that people go back to and refer to and listen to again and again
Right.
because they're sharing something that's going to be really, really usable. And some guest conversations can do this as well, but it's harder to make that a natural sounding conversation, that level of like teaching and instructional type thing. So for re-listenability, solos tend to do really well for that also.
Yeah.